Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Miller, your host. I am thrilled with our guest this morning. We are so blessed to have an expert in and seasoned expert in supply chain, particularly digital supply chain, over 17 years experience, all different industries. He's here to share with us what's going on in the industry, including, some thoughts about AI, predictive analytics, and well, let's just get started. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sachin Sharma.
Thank you, Pam, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the topic that is of really great interest to me.
Can't wait to find out what you have to say all about supply chain. As you know, our show is sponsored by a software company that has a product in the food industry supply chain. So we are always very interested in what's going on. But right now, current events wise, we're in approaching the end of first quarter of 2025, and there are some real challenges in the supply chain. What's happening out there?
Yeah, Pam, pretty interesting. You see today supply chain is kind of facing a growing challenge and that is including the geopolitical instability, labor shortage, increased resilience on AI and automation. And basically there's a greater need for transparency and the impact of climate change in the supply chain resilience. So there are quite some challenges that we have, and I'm hoping that we're going to mitigate them, in this year and going forward.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of those, actually, how we might be able to tackle them. I guess I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on climate change impacting the supply chain. Particularly, you mentioned that. I'm not sure. I don't always put those two together. So,
Well, Pam, that's a good question. And before we, I think, dig into that, I think we need to understand the digital supply chain and how it is different from the traditional supply chain and the offering that it has.
perfect. That would be great. Thank you. Take us through
So absolutely. So if you see this digital supply chain is the next evolution of the traditional supply chain, where we are basically incorporating and leveraging these advanced technologies like AI, IoT, blockchain, and cloud computing, and basically this create a fully connected in a data-driven automated ecosystem around us, and that kind of gives us a better visibility, track and trace of where we are with our services, products, right? Predictive analysis and basically the seamless collaboration across our business partners, which are like suppliers, manufacturers, logistic providers, and customers. So thereby, by leveraging these digital twins and automation, we this digital supply chain is enhancing the agility and resilience and allowing business to respond proactively than ever before.
wow.
Uh,
But can we let's pause for a second and for our audience define some of these terms, because I know especially some of our listeners might know what supply chain is. Certainly over COVID, anyone who hadn't heard of supply chain before certainly heard of it, because we weren't able to get toilet paper, and that made the average consumer pay attention to where their products come from and how they get from point A to point B. But you mentioned several things that are critical in the digital space, but that our audience might not be aware of. I think IoT, Internet of Things, a lot of people are aware of that. And we've talked before on this show about how in transmission of goods, the sensors that can help refrigerated goods stay as cold as they need to be. And we have GPS technology, obviously, that can tell us exactly where the trucks are, any kind of IoT information that can be fed into the system. You talked about predictive analytics, which I know is a whole topic unto itself, but it plays a key role in the digital supply chain, right?
Absolutely. And you bring up a very good point, Pam, about COVID. COVID was certainly a wake-up call for all of us. We were kind of just going with the traditional ways, but after COVID, we realized that how even these small things can be paramount to our day-to-day need, and how we can be on a limbo sometimes if things are not planned and intelligently done in some of these information systems. So certainly, that was a wake-up call for all of us. Now, the AI and the implication of AI certainly has a lot of key components in this space. Like you said, the IoTs, IoTs. Basically, there are so many case studies that has been done across the world. And organizations like Siemens, GE, some of these big organizations are very popular examples where basically they have incorporated the AI into their industrial landscape, and kind of leveraged the preventive maintenances of their equipments, their assets, so that they way ahead of time they know what needs to be fixed, and with low cost and with less turnaround time. So in that space, IoT and the sensors kind of play a very important and significant role in some of these manufacturing and industrial landscape. You also brought about predictive analytics. So certainly, now with the advent of AI for the past few years, we are seeing colossal data that basically kind of gives us a better footprint of how to better use our processes, kind of make the processes, business processes, very intelligent. So with with this data, now we have a better visibility into how we can basically predict the outcome of the future outcome based on the data, what data tells us. So basically, in that space, that is really helping client in a better way.
Well, would predictive analytics be something like helping with maybe inventory controls? If you knew a certain time of year, you could predict what your needs might be based on other analytics you were able to gather. Is that the kind of predictions you're talking about?
Exactly. That's a very good point,
Okay. Okay.
Pam. That certainly does, because with the data now, with the organizational data, we are now better able to, take a look at that and basically optimize our inventory, our warehouse operations. Now the inventory can be more just in time, and we don't have to kind of bear the enormous cost of the inventory in our stock. So certainly that data and that historical data, and the future forecast certainly helps in kind of optimizing and fine tuning our inventory in the warehouses, and our supplies basically from the vendors, right? So yeah, that certainly plays an important role.
Yeah, and that really saves that efficiency, or if you're able to scale that efficiency across the entire supply chain. I mean, that really helps to manage costs and just best utilize all the resources, right? If you don't have the items sitting around in a warehouse for extra time, I mean, that time is money in that situation. Thanks for that explanation. This is so interesting. And you've mentioned AI a couple of times. I'd really like your insights into how that is playing in the supply chain.
Yeah, so there are a number of case studies that has happened, and that has helped the organizations, in kind of streamlining their business processes, and accelerating their computing and AI technology. So GE, General Electric, is another example, which is like they leverage predictive maintenance and quality control, and they are into a healthcare space basically. So basically, with the with the adoption of AI, companies like GE, they have enhanced the patient, uh, the patient diagnosis program, making the ultrasound diagnosis quicker and more accurate. So, certainly there are these case studies, like other case study I mentioned was the Siemens. So there are a bunch of these case studies where the organizations are, incorporating the industrial AI and leveraging it to the growth of their businesses, and kind of making this whole process very transparent and very visible for themselves and for their customers.
Yeah, nice. Great. Thank you. Well, now you have worked, let's get into a little bit of, because my introduction was very general, but you have quite the educational background in supply chain. I know you have different degrees, you've worked across the world. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe back up a little bit and tell us your 17 years of experience and kind of where you've been with that. And we'll dive into a couple more current topics after that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I started as a buyer in a factory, in a organization, and gradually then grew into managing the whole the store operations, the inventory warehouse operations, and my experiences basically has been kind of working into this space in the United States, in Canada. I have helped clients implement, these enterprise solutions, and kind of, train them on the digital supply chain. Have helped clients in the European Union, England, and then in India. So certainly, it's been a great journey. And, my experience, I've seen basically the evolution of digital, the supply chain, traditional supply chain to the digital supply chain. And I've seen some of these challenges that the customers faces globally, and most of those challenges were pretty much the same. But certainly, I'm now experiencing, and we're witnessing in this era, that some of these challenges are being mitigated by the digital supply chain.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I went to school in India, and then I went to school in the United States. I did my MBA from Emory, and then I did my doctorate program from University of Missouri St. Louis, where basically my research was more into how the enterprise technology, how the users basically view the adoption of the enterprise technologies, and what are their reactions, and whether they take it, or they kind of, they're like scared of, adopting the technologies. I have, done some case studies in the enterprise solution adoption for my
Yeah.
clients, the clients for which I worked for. We did some case studies to kind of get their feedback as to how they experienced this digital transformation journey, from going from their traditional isolated systems to more connected and intelligent systems. So
Yeah.
it's been a great journey, and I enjoy reading and researching about the supply chain and electronic and the system adoption.
And
In
I bet, as you do these enterprise and uh, solutions for companies, the user adoption is a big part of it. I mean, they have to figure out how to accept it, how to integrate it into their operations. And when they're used to being like a standalone system, and now I guess, I mean, what I'm seeing, and you can confirm what you see happening in the future, but we're just seeing everything be much more connected. Would you agree in the supply chain, as far as it's not so much just, one company, and it seems to be going across, where everybody has to communicate across the supply chains.
Very well said, Pam. Exactly. Now these systems and these ecosystem of systems are more connected, and you have, from the upstream, you have a better visibility of your downstream processes, your system, your data flow, and with this digitalization in this space, now basically the data is flowing real time. and without any manual intervention. So, it happens without any latency. It just kind of, as soon as the data is available, it's punched in, it's submitted, it just flow across the applications and kind of, from upstream to downstream. So certainly that has made, the processes a little more efficient, very fast. We don't have to now wait for, hours, not days, hours. Like, it's pretty quick now, within a few seconds, we kind of see the data is kind of flowing from one system to the downstream system.
Right. And I think I venture to say that the food industry is, you talked about no latency in the system. I think the food industry in some ways is a little bit behind other industries that have had to adopt this technology sooner. You might be aware in the United States, we have a new regulation that is coming. The FDA FSMA 204D rule, which is requiring some tracking and tracing and communication, really, like I was talking about, across that connected supply chain for certain products within the food industry. And compliance is January of 2026. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that are really scrambling to figure out how they're going to comply. And our sponsor supplies a system to do that. But a lot of other industries, like you said, you've done a lot of enterprise enablements and installations, and they've kind of had to be there a little bit sooner than the guy standing on the barge writing down what pallets of food are coming in to the port. I mean, we've come a long way from there, but there's still a long way to go. What do you see happening in the future moving forward?
Yeah, that's a very well question, Pam. Certainly these, in the case of the food industry, these things had to be, kind of better tracked, better traced. The origin of the food, from where we are getting the food. I mean, nowadays, the consumer is becoming more intelligent. He or she wants to know where my food is coming from, and what are the different nutritional aspects of the food. So I think this is better time to kind of make these processes a little more intelligent and kind of provide that visibility to the customer, to ensure that the wherever you're getting your food from, internationally, globally, how it is kind of being procured, and what are the different means of kind of producing those foods, ensuring that there's no child labor, ensuring that, we follow the best practices and the right, law of the land. And, so those things, I think, has to be, looked after more carefully than ever before. And I think, yeah, industry is really working towards it. But certainly, I think the penetration of this, or the adoption of this, hasn't been that much. I think we are very much at the nascent stage still, and I think this has to be rolled out, accelerated pace to broader organizations, to kind of see the impact. Yeah, so I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think as everybody continues to catch up, all the different industries, I think it'll be a lot easier to integrate. But when you have some that are really far ahead, some that are really far behind, we're kind of in that time where adoption is important. We just need to keep, like you said, accelerating the adoption, and just have people take on these systems and implement them, and that'll make a big difference moving forward, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience? We've covered a lot of really interesting aspects of the supply chain, but I know you also have, some special interests. Is there anything you'd like to share with them?
Um, well, I think we covered pretty much everything, but what I wanted to bring up is that there has been data in the market, and this data kind of tells us that, there are we still seeing that, especially in the North America region, the CEOs and the business executives, they are talking about, implementation of this Gen AI into their businesses. So there's a lot of interest basically in it. The data also tells us that uh, you know eh, the organizations which are not going to be getting into this space of digitalization sooner, they may be facing a lot of challenges. So I think this is about time for the businesses to kind of take a look at and take a look at the future and see and kind of get onto this ride of digitalization of their processes, their businesses, and leveraging AI and the different components of the digital supply chain. So I think it is about time for that.
Well, thanks for your insight on that. I agree with you that it behooves business owners and others to take advantage of the technology that's available. That's kind of the message I'm hearing from you. All this is out there. It can positively impact how goods are services, well, not services, but goods are moving through our supply chain. And it does take some effort to implement, but it seems like it's really well worth it based on the case studies you've done on the back end. It's well worth the effort involved to work these systems into current operations. And I look forward to what the supply chain improvements and enhancements can bring us in the future. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for being on this show with us. We have certainly enjoyed it. And please leave us any comments, audience. Let's have a dialogue about this. We will have contact information for Dr. Sharma if you'd like to engage with him in the show notes. And we appreciate you being with us on this episode. Until next time, I'm Pam Line-Miller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.